We are going to talk about building communities around your business. What are the benefits, how to get started, and what is the secret sauce behind making it successful? Brilliant. What are the benefits beyond the obvious of having a community around your business?
You know how many companies would tell us we do not want to service your business owners to come learn about us? So I was like, here we are bringing your literally engaged local entrepreneurs to learn about your brand, which is the biggest benefit in a local environment. It's like ginormous.
Yeah.
And we would have people telling us, no, we don't want to do that. So what we learned really quickly is a lot of businesses really don't understand the value of connecting and creating fans. Now, I will tell you a success story. One of the local people, they owned a company called Postcard Mania, and Joy Jandusa started it from the ground up. She has like 200 employees. We brought her 60 business owners to her doors. Do you not think that she loved us? And she said, how else can we do this? How can we do this more often? And she got to tell her story. And what I realized is the first challenge is most businesses are not aware that this is a huge value for their business. So how do you do it? The very first thing, this is a consultant of mine said this, people do not show up where they are not invited. And that is advice that he gave me a long time ago. My good friend, Mark Katz, Fortune 100 consultant. I used to say, what do you mean by that? He goes, have you invited XYZ to come to your event? I'm like, no. He goes, so why would they show up? And we would think, and I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, we sent out a blast email, we put it up on Facebook. No, personal invites make a big deal. So if you have a customer base, have you sent a personal invite, you, the CEO, whoever's in charge, the CMO, so whatever, to give you feedback. So the benefits are they know you're listening, so they know you care. The side thing is now they're giving you feedback that they would not give you. If you don't have that relationship, you're going to get the feedback that your best friend gives you. Oh, what you're doing is great. You want strategic feedback. I can't tell you how valuable that is because most companies, the big ones anyways, millions of dollars for this feedback that's already under their nose. So that's the core benefit. The secondary is now when you have your customer bought into what you're doing, you can create superior products because now you're ahead of the feedback curve from all your competitors, which is extremely valuable.
What are the keys to a strong, engaged, proactive community?
We do a lot of town hall calls, and Isar could probably recite what I'm about to say, and he knows. I always go over the history of Podfest at the beginning of pretty much all those town halls. And unfortunately for me, I'm thinking of Isar like, oh man, this is the 10th time he's heard it. But I also have to think, but this is the key crucial part, Isar. There's someone that's a first timer that hasn't heard what Isar has said. I always tell the history of the company up front, almost all the time. So we never skip the history, even though, and we don't qualify like, I'm sorry you have to hear it again. No, here it is. I might come up with different fun facts to make it interesting for the people I've heard it 10 times over. However, communicating your history with your audience allows them to see your growth. And when they see your growth, they then want to be part of your future growth. So I would say, one of the key factors is always communicate. Where'd you come from? Was there anything that was hard that they could relate to? Don't hide it. Tell people. Tell them what you're strong at. And then if you're weak, like for instance, for us to grow to the size that we've grown in attendees, we don't have the staff to function at the level we would like to. However, we have the audience. So what we said to our audience is we need your help to help us grow. And they'll say, well, what do you need? Well, when someone has a customer service complaint, if you could get it, it's a big ask, but if you have this relationship, you could do this. Can you get to that before we do? And when that happens, your culture now is growing outside of yourself. And we believe that the wisdom of our consumers, for us, it's our attendees, which is our community. But those consumers, if you could put them into a community environment, other companies can't compete with that because there's something special about that. You need to stop any prejudgment of numbers. So that's the poison pill. So what that means is if one person shows up and says, I want to be a brand ambassador, your objective should be to make that person feel like the most special person in the world and treat them like your number one brand ambassador. What most people tend to do is, I wasn't successful. Only one person showed up. The biggest movements are started by one person, one follower.
How many people were in your first get-together you did in Tampa?
So the first meetup for podcasting had 13 people.
Okay. And just to put things in perspective, that was when?
I'd like to say it was 2014, maybe 2013, somewhere around there. 2013, I think.
The last Podfest Global that just ended, the virtual, the last one that happened.
Over 6,000.
So that just proves the point, right? It's about the mindset of inclusion, the mindset of making something for the long run that's bigger than you, that allows everybody to participate, just builds over time. And as long as you keep that mindset, and because that mindset, you keep attracting the right people, you will keep on growing. And the initial number is completely irrelevant. So if you're thinking like, oh my God, I would love to have 6,000 people of my optimal clients just want to connect with me every time I want to connect, or connecting between themselves, which is what happens in many of these communities without me doing anything. And that's what I want to have 5 years from now. Well, guess what? The first time you're going to have 1 to 13 people, because that's the way it works. But without having them, you will not have 6,000 down the road. It just doesn't work.
The interesting thing is, of those 12 or 13 people, 3 or 4 of them still show up like years later from a meetup. They're still loyal to the brand, which tells you the strength of that brand.
You make other people shine, right? We call our company, by the way, Be the Stage, because we don't want to be the stars of the stage. We want to be the stage where other people can shine. And you're a big believer in that. How do you do that? How do you attract the right people to allow them to shine, to allow the organization to grow?
So in the early years, you have to curate very carefully. But then as the community would grow, we felt that our culture was solidified in some way, shape, or form at some time, that we felt that the ESRs of the world that are sitting there watching could then mimic and melt right into the culture. Yeah. So when we felt comfortable with that, we started loosening a lot of our restrictions. So for instance, we deal with a lot of speakers. So we will give our speakers the benefit of the doubt. However, they must attend our town halls, and we tell them what's expected of them. And then we'll tell them, hey, if you really don't feel strong or comfortable, you need help, please reach out to us. And then if you need to sit this out and watch, let us know. What almost always happens, and I know you're part of this, but we bat like 900% when it comes to speakers, meaning 9 out of 10 are out of the park. You're never going to bat 1,000. However, people always say, where'd you find all these people? We told them what was expected of them, and we allowed them to rise to the occasion. And when they needed help, we did our best to give them the help that they needed. And that was really, we only executed and built that once we felt comfortable with the culture had solidified. So that would be a phase 2 process to if that helps.
So what was phase 1?
Phase 1 is get the buy-in of your first group, the 13 people, so to speak, my 13 meetup people. Now we take them and we say, what's phase 2? Okay, let's do a bigger event, see if we could draw more people. For us, it was 100 people showed up. Okay, well, that went really well. Let's see what happens next year, 181. So we built over time. In that time, we built models of what's expected, what the crowd wants. We kind of understood now the parameters. And then that's when phase 2, once we understood the audience even better, then we unleashed phase 2, which is, okay, let's trust the wisdom of the crowd, of our community, and allow them to succeed. One of the other things I would tell you is you must treat everybody with respect. And one of our rules behind the scenes, if we cannot help someone in some situation, we will figure out a way to help them. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like a brand rule. So someone says, hey, I'd like to speak. Okay, maybe I can't help you with that right now. But what I can help you is, what is it that you're trying to do? And I'll ask, and they'll say, hey, have you met Isar? You guys have a perfect niche within business with your podcast. And we'll send an e-introduction. So in other words, most brands are very quick to say, no, that doesn't fit what we're doing here. We're the opposite. We're like, okay, listen, we don't know if we could help you in this, but we'd like to learn more to see how we could help connect you. And people are always taken aback by that. But like, the willingness to help means more than saying no or yes, if that makes sense. It's the willingness to listen. So if you're a brand, the next step is you have one person show up. The next step is listening to all these other people that are willing to talk to you, and truly listening, not and saying, okay, I'll try and figure out a way where we could work together, help one another, or how we could help you. Because most events are so scared of giving new speakers opportunities, they feature the same people over and over. And these are some of the greatest events. Yeah. And the speakers, like, they're great, but the challenge is now you're not giving new voices, new people to come up. And what happens is you have an echo chamber of the same voices every year at the same conference. And a lot of the best education then happens out in the hallways. So for me, it's a smack in the face if someone says, I love Podfest, but I only hang out in the hallways because that's where all the value is. Now, I believe there's tons of value in the hallways, but here's what I would want them to say. I don't know what to choose, the hallways or the breakouts, everything's so good, or the exhibit hall. And usually that's the feedback we get because they know Isar's in the breakout. He's going to talk about tools because Isar's like the top guy in what we do. Or do I go to exhibit hall and talk to, Dave Jackson, who's sitting there? Or do I go to talk to, Themby, who's going to do VAs? You want your attendees to be conflicted of what they need to choose because that means you're executing on all levels. So I'm a big proponent on being okay with dropping the ball every now and then to achieve greatness rather than the converse, which is holding everything so tightly knit that you're really hurting your growth. And now you're actually hurting even future growth because no one's coming to an event that's featuring the same players over and over. How do you know your culture within your audience has taken a hold? And I'll give you one very key example. In the early years of Tampa, I remember once we had someone that came to our networking event, and we've all experienced this, the person that gives everybody a business card and shakes everybody's hand, but they don't spend any time to talk to you. So you almost feel like your hand got raped by their business card. So I remember Shelley Walk, who is our resident attorney member, and she was also a sponsor. She said to the person, she gave him back the business card. She goes, you're in the wrong place to do this. You need to understand the culture and you need to slow down because no one's going to call you from this group. To me, the fact that I'm up on stage getting ready for we're interviewing some CEO or whatever, the fact that she had the guts to say that on behalf of all of us when no one's in the room. And I think Katie, my wife, someone heard her and we were so proud and we thanked her after. See, most people might've said, hey, Shelley, can you not do that? We don't want to offend that person. For our culture, that's a home run because she is holding the line and protecting her fellow community members within that ecosystem. So when you're doing right, your members are the ones fighting your case in the public sphere. If they're fighting your culture for you, you have done something that takes some companies generations to build that kind of goodwill, and you're doing it by trusting your community.